Chapter 10. Closing the Gaps. Ava didn't wait for the next ambush. By Monday, she had a new rule. If it isn't in writing, it doesn't exist. Every agreement, every decision, every shift in schedule, she sent a follow-up email. Always with timestamps. Always with a CC to at least one other person. When someone stopped by her desk to ask about a deliverable, she smiled and said, "Sure, send me that in an email and I'll confirm." It wasn't just about protecting herself. It was about closing the cracks Riley kept slipping through. 2 days into her new system, Riley tried again. They were in a small project huddle, just her, Riley, and Marcy. "So, as we agreed yesterday," he said casually, "Ava will have the revised client draft ready by Friday." Ava didn't look up from her notebook. "We actually agreed on Monday delivery. I sent the recap email last night. Did you see it?" Marcy nodded. "Yeah, I saw that." Riley's smile thinned. "Guess I missed it. Let me forward it to you again," Ava said, already typing. That evening, she logged another entry. Paper trail defense in effect. 2 attempted distortions blocked in real time. Witness confirmation achieved. But even as she typed, she knew Riley wouldn't stop. If anything, he'd adapt. And he did, by moving the conversation into spaces where emails couldn't follow. Riley had always been most dangerous in the quiet spaces. The hallway between conference rooms, the kitchenette when the coffee was brewing, the few steps from the elevator to the main office. Those were the moments that didn't get written down, that no one thought to record, where a passing comment could be later reframed into something entirely different. Now that Ava had closed off the big gaps, the emails, the official meetings, Riley pivoted into those unguarded spaces. And it happened fast. It started on a Wednesday morning. Ava had barely stepped off the elevator when Riley was already there, leaning against the wall by the reception desk. He didn't look at her at first, just pretended to check his phone. Then, as she passed, he said, "Don't forget, you promised you'd have that vendor briefed to me today." Ava stopped mid-step. "I didn't promise that." He smiled faintly, still not looking up. "You did. Monday, right after stand-up." She scanned her mental calendar. Monday's stand-up had been tightly scheduled, no side conversations. She had gone straight to a client call afterward. There had been no promise. "Riley," she said slowly, "I sent the vendor timeline in writing. It's due Friday, not today." He shrugged. "Guess I'll check my notes." And then he walked away, leaving her standing there, heart rate ticking up. By the time she got to her desk, she had already opened a blank email. "Riley, following up on your comment this morning. As per my email from Monday, the vendor brief is scheduled for Friday delivery. Ava." She hit send and leaned back in her chair. It was tedious, exhausting even, to keep documenting every false breadcrumb he dropped. But the alternative was worse, letting those distortions go unchallenged. 2 days later, it escalated. They were in the kitchenette, both waiting for coffee. Marcy walked in halfway through. Riley was mid-sentence. "So when Ava said she'd be joining the Dixon call, I thought she was joking." Ava turned. "I never said that." Riley's eyebrows lifted. "Sure you did. Yesterday afternoon, right before you left." "No," Ava said, her voice steady. "I said I wasn't available for that call." Marcy glanced between them. Riley laughed lightly, like it was all a misunderstanding. "Maybe I heard wrong." The moment Marcy turned to pour her coffee, Ava pulled out her phone and sent herself a quick note. 8:42 a.m. Riley claimed I agreed to Dixon call. False. Marcy present. That weekend, she created a new system. If Riley wanted to move the game into unwritten spaces, she would bring those spaces into the record. On Monday morning, she set a small, discreet voice recorder in her tote bag, its mic peeking through the zipper. She didn't use it everywhere, only in situations where Riley was likely to try his hallway tactics. The first time she caught him was almost anticlimactic. They passed in the corridor outside the client suite. Riley said, "Thanks again for agreeing to handle Dixon onboarding earlier than planned. You're a lifesaver." Without breaking stride, Ava replied, "I didn't agree to that." Later that night, she listened to the playback. His tone was casual, offhand, exactly the kind of statement that could be later framed as fact. She saved the file in a new folder, Audio, Verbal Distortions. By midweek, she had 3 more recordings. They weren't dramatic, but that wasn't the point. The point was to make sure his tactics never went unchallenged. Still, she knew recordings alone wouldn't be enough. If she ever had to bring this to HR or a higher authority, she'd need a clear chronological pattern, a connection between each distortion attempt and her written corrections. So she began pairing the audio clips with follow-up emails. Riley, regarding your earlier comment in the hallway about Dixon onboarding. To clarify, my availability begins next Monday, per our current project schedule. Ava, it was tedious, yes. But slowly, Ava felt the balance shift. Riley was still playing his game, but the net she was weaving around him was growing tighter by the day. And she could tell he was starting to feel it. Because now, when he saw her reach for her phone after one of his reminders, there was the faintest flicker in his eyes, a calculation, maybe even irritation. The game wasn't over, but the board was changing. It was one thing for Riley to twist facts when he was speaking directly to Ava. She could correct him in real time, document the moment, and move on. But when he began seeding his version of events into other people's conversations, planting distortions where she wasn't present to counter them, Ava realized the game had shifted again. She caught the first one by accident. It was late Thursday morning. Ava was heading back from a meeting when she heard her name in the break room. The door was ajar, and she paused in the hallway, not close enough to be seen, but near enough to hear. Yeah, Ava said she'd take the lead on the Dixon onboarding herself. Riley's voice floated out, casual but confident. It's a lot of work, but you know Ava, she likes the control. Another voice, Jordan from marketing, replied, Really? I thought you were handling Dixon. I was, Riley said, but she insisted. Wants to make sure it's done her way. Ava stood still, gripping the folder in her hands so tightly the cardboard edges bit into her palm. She hadn't said anything of the sort. She stepped forward and pushed the door open. Riley turned mid-smile, a mug in his hand. Jordan looked up, startled. Actually, Ava said evenly, I've never said I'd take the lead. The onboarding schedule is still as agreed. Riley's responsibility until next week. Jordan glanced between them, brow furrowed. Oh, okay. Riley's smile didn't falter. Guess I misunderstood. But Ava saw the way he avoided her eyes as he set his mug down. That afternoon, she updated her documentation system. The problem wasn't just correcting him in her own interactions. It was dismantling the false narratives he spread in her absence. She needed witnesses. She began a running list of secondary recipients. Anyone who had been in the room, or within earshot, when Riley dropped his casual lies. Every time she caught one, she'd send a follow-up email to both Riley and the person he'd spoken to. Riley, Jordan. For clarity on today's conversation, the Dixon onboarding remains on Riley's schedule until next Monday, per our original plan. No changes have been agreed. Ava. She didn't care if it felt excessive. Over-documenting was better than letting his distortions calcify into office truth. By Friday, she caught him again. This time it was in the hallway outside the copy room. I'm glad Ava's finally agreed to push back the client presentation, Riley was saying to Marcy. I told her it was too soon. Marcy nodded vaguely, clearly half listening. Ava walked up and stopped beside them. I haven't agreed to that, she said. The presentation date is still confirmed for the 15th. Riley tilted his head. We talked about it yesterday. We didn't, Ava replied, holding his gaze. And if we had, I'd have confirmed it in writing. He smirked faintly. Guess my mistake. Ava opened her phone right there and typed the follow-up email in front of him. It became a pattern over the next week. Riley would make a casual comment to a third party. Ava would appear or hear about it, and she'd shut it down in the moment, followed by a written correction. But Ava also began to notice something new. The more she caught him, the more cautious he became in choosing his targets. He stopped trying his echo chamber tactic with people who knew her well or who tended to fact-check. Instead, he focused on newer hires or people outside her department who might not realize his comments were manipulative. That was where Ava's new tactic came in. She started quietly building alliances. Over lunch with Jordan a few days later, she leaned in and said, If Riley ever says I've committed to something, I'd appreciate it if you'd double-check with me before passing it along. Jordan looked thoughtful. He's done that before with other people too. I'll keep an ear out. She had similar conversations with 3 others, always casual, never accusatory, framing it as wanting to make sure the team's on the same page. The point wasn't to turn the office against Riley overnight. It was to quietly seed doubt in the places where his version of reality might otherwise take root unchecked. The turning point came when she got a quiet message from Marcy. Hey, FYI, Riley told Greg you were handling the final Dixon client report. Thought you'd want to know. Ava replied, thanks. I'll follow up. She didn't confront Riley immediately. Instead, she waited until the end of the day, when Greg was still at his desk and Riley had just walked back from the elevator. Greg, Ava said, loud enough for Riley to hear, I understand there's been some confusion about who's handling the Dixon report. Just to clarify, it's Riley's responsibility through final delivery. Greg nodded. Got it. Riley didn't say a word. That night, Ava made a note in her documentation. Third-party echo chamber diminishing effectiveness. Witnesses increasingly aware. Maintain pressure. The gaps were closing. Riley was still maneuvering, but now each move cost him more credibility, more room to operate. And Ava knew the next phase wouldn't be about catching him in lies. It would be about making it impossible for him to plant them in the first place. By now, Ava had mapped Riley's patterns so clearly that she could predict the timing of his moves. He rarely went more than 2 days without planting a distortion somewhere. It was almost compulsive, as though he couldn't function without subtly rewriting reality in his favor. So instead of simply reacting, Ava decided to shift into preemptive mode. The first tactic she called conversational blockades. Anytime she was in a meeting or casual group chat and Riley tried to insert a clarification about her supposed decisions, she would speak first. Not to him directly, but to the group. At Monday's morning check-in, she said before the agenda even started, before we dive in, just a quick reminder. All changes to project roles or timelines will be sent out by me in writing to the full team. If you hear otherwise, it's probably not accurate. No eye contact with Riley. No accusation. Just a public ground rule that stripped his favorite trick of oxygen. The room nodded along. Riley gave a small, tight smile. The second tactic was mirror traps. She would start an apparently harmless conversation with him in front of others, offering him a chance to state something concrete, then immediately confirm it aloud in a way that locked him into it. On Wednesday, she caught him in the hallway with Jordan nearby. So, Riley, she said, voice pleasant, you're still handling the final Dixon handover on Monday, right? He hesitated a fraction of a second before replying. Yes. Great, Ava said, turning to Jordan. Could you make sure your report feeds into Riley's handover? He just confirmed the date. Jordan nodded. Riley's jaw twitched. Her third tactic was subtler, building a culture of shared confirmation without making it about him. She began every group meeting with a light remark like, let's make sure we leave here with the same takeaways, and ended each one with, I'll follow up in writing so we're all aligned. At first it felt mechanical, but within a week, others were doing it too. Jordan started repeating deadlines out loud after they were set. Marcy began asking, who's got the final sign-off? In open calls. It wasn't just Ava fighting the fog anymore. The office itself was becoming resistant to distortion. Riley noticed. She could see it in the way his gaze tracked the room now, assessing who was a safe audience, who might push back, who might report back to her. His margin of manipulation was shrinking, but Ava knew better than to celebrate too soon. Cornering someone like Riley could make them reckless, and reckless manipulators often switched tactics entirely when their old ones stopped working. That shift came faster than she expected. On Thursday afternoon, she was preparing to leave when she heard Riley's voice from across the open floor, pitched just loud enough for nearby desks to hear. I've been worried about Ava, he said to Marcy, his tone heavy with concern. She's been under so much pressure lately. I think it's affecting her memory. A slow burn started in Ava's chest. This wasn't a factual twist about a project. This was character framing, planting the idea that she was unreliable, forgetful, maybe even unstable. A long-game seed that could sprout later in performance reviews or team trust. She walked over, calm and deliberate. Riley, I appreciate your concern, but my memory's fine. If you're referring to any project details, those are all documented in writing. Would you like me to send you the logs? Marcy's eyes widened slightly. Riley gave a soft laugh. No need to get defensive. It's not defensiveness, Ava said evenly. It's clarity. I don't want anyone leaving with the wrong impression. She held his gaze until he looked away. Then she walked back to her desk, opened her email, and sent a note to both Riley and Marcy summarizing the project logs from the last month. Timestamps, updates, deadlines met. No editorializing. Just hard proof. That night, she wrote in her documentation, shift detected. from event distortion to personal framing. Priority, counter early. If Riley wanted to make it about her credibility instead of her work, she would need a parallel defense system. Facts and witnesses for the tasks, yes, but also consistent proof of her steadiness under pressure, her ability to remember and follow through, her professionalism in all settings. She started making small but visible moves, showing up to meetings 5 minutes early, always with printed agendas, referring back to past action items with precision, volunteering for quick summaries after group discussions. Every action said the same thing. I am the opposite of what he's trying to suggest. A week later, she set the final trap of this phase. During a team huddle, she brought up a minor scheduling conflict between two departments and asked Riley directly, "Do you remember what we agreed on last week regarding that?" He hesitated, glanced around, then said, "We pushed the review to Friday." "Correct," Ava said, smiling slightly. "Exactly what I have in my notes." She turned to the group. "See, consistent memory on both sides." It was a small win, but she saw the flicker in his expression, the realization that she was now using his own presence to reinforce her credibility instead of erode it. By the end of the month, Riley's behavior had shifted again. He was quieter in meetings, more cautious in hallway chatter. The distortions hadn't stopped entirely, but they'd slowed to a crawl. The office wasn't fog-free. Manipulators like him rarely quit outright. But Ava had forced him into a position where every move was riskier than the last. And she knew the next phase wouldn't be about defense at all. It would be about pushing forward, taking back space, influence, and narrative until there was no room left for his games. Chapter 11. Turning the Pressure. The weekly strategy meeting was the one place Riley had always felt safe to run his version of events. No recordings, no paper trail beyond a few scribbled notes on the whiteboard, and plenty of opportunities to make offhand remarks sound like established truth. Ava had let it slide long enough. By Tuesday morning, she had decided she wasn't going to sit quietly while he rewrote another chunk of the project timeline in front of half the department. The difference this time was that she wasn't going to correct him in private later. She was going to do it in real time, with everyone listening. The meeting room was already crowded when she walked in. The long oval table was ringed with the usual mix of managers, project leads, and 2 senior directors. Riley sat halfway down on the left, relaxed in his chair, chatting with Marcy and David. Ava chose a seat 2 spots away from him, close enough to hear every word, far enough to keep her own space. She slid her folder onto the table and kept her hands flat on it, resisting the urge to check her phone for the email she'd prepared that morning. The meeting began as it always did. Quarterly updates, budget allocations, a few slides about upcoming client renewals. Then came the agenda item Ava had been waiting for, the Dixon account onboarding schedule. The operations director, Lena, gestured toward Riley. "Riley, you've been coordinating with Ava on this. Where do we stand?" Riley smiled easily. "Right, so as we discussed last week, Ava's agreed to move Dixon's onboarding up by 3 weeks. She'll have the vendor integration complete by the 15th, and client training will begin on the 17th. A few heads turned toward Ava. Lena nodded as if the matter was settled. "That's good to hear." Ava didn't wait. "I didn't agree to that." The room went quiet. She kept her voice calm, level. "Per the project timeline we finalized in writing, vendor integration starts on the 29th, with training the following week. I have the signed-off schedule here." She lifted the folder slightly and slid a printed copy onto the table, turning it so Lena could see. Riley chuckled softly, like this was a minor mix-up. Maybe there's been a miscommunication. Ava didn't let him pivot. "No, there's been a repeated pattern of dates being changed verbally without documentation. I've raised this before, and I've made sure every change request is confirmed in writing. This particular change was never agreed to or approved." Now the air in the room felt different. Marcy glanced at Riley, then down at her notes. David cleared his throat, but stayed silent. Lena frowned. "Riley, do we have written confirmation of this change?" Riley hesitated, the smallest pause, but Ava caught it. "I'll have to check my emails." "That won't be necessary," Ava said, sliding a second sheet forward. "Here's the email thread from last Thursday, confirming the original schedule." No follow-up emails were sent to alter it. She could see Lena reading the lines, her frown deepening. "All right, then the original schedule stands unless there's a formal change request." There it was. Not a dramatic victory, but a public one, and one that everyone in the room had just witnessed. Riley leaned back, crossing his arms. "Fine," he said, the easy smile gone. "We'll stick to the original schedule." The meeting moved on, but Ava noticed how the tone shifted. Riley said less. Lena now looked to Ava directly when onboarding updates came up. It was a small shift, but it mattered. And Ava knew from experience that someone like Riley wouldn't let it go. Public pushback meant he'd be looking for a way to reassert control, which was exactly what she wanted. When the meeting ended, Riley didn't approach her, unusual in itself. Normally, he'd try to smooth things over, maybe make a joke to blur the edges of what had happened. Today, he walked straight out without looking at her. Ava stayed behind, packing her folder slowly. Once the room was empty, she pulled out her phone and sent herself a note. Public confrontation, Dixon onboarding. Riley backed down in front of Lena. Watch for retaliation. That afternoon, she began the second part of her plan. She'd realized that direct confrontation alone wouldn't be enough. Riley thrived in ambiguity, and even if she shut down one false narrative, he'd simply start another somewhere else. The real solution would be to build a chain, a sequence of small, undeniable truths that pointed to a larger pattern. The key was timing. If she moved too soon, he'd adapt. But if she waited until he overreached, the pattern would be undeniable. By the end of the day, she had her trigger set. In her calendar, she created a private event 3 weeks out. Expected overreach. It wasn't a certainty, but it was a bet she was willing to take. In the meantime, she began laying down a few quiet markers. Small, seemingly unrelated requests for clarification sent to various team members after interactions with Riley. "Hi Marcy. Following up on our hallway chat earlier. Riley mentioned you'd confirmed I was covering the Dixon kickoff session. Just to clarify, I'm not scheduled for that. Can you confirm? Thanks, Ava." It wasn't about catching Marcy in anything. It was about creating a written thread where third parties had to acknowledge, in their own words, that Riley's statements didn't match reality. By Thursday, she had 3 such threads started. None were confrontational. All were polite, precise, and archived in a new folder on her desktop labeled third-party verifications. She didn't need to explain it to anyone, not yet. But when the time came, the effect would be sharp. Riley's distortions wouldn't just be contradicted by her. They'd be contradicted by his own colleagues. Walking to her car that night, Ava felt something she hadn't in weeks. Not relief, exactly, but control. The board had shifted again, and this time, she wasn't waiting for his move. She was shaping the next play. The only question now was how quickly Riley would take the bait. The first sign came less than 24 hours after the meeting. Ava arrived at her desk Thursday morning to find an email flagged urgent from Lena. It was brief, just a request for Ava to clarify the confusion over 2 Dixon account deliverables that Riley had apparently said were still up in the air. The problem was, nothing was up in the air. The deliverables had been settled in the project plan for weeks. Ava knew exactly what had happened. Riley had walked into Lena's office the night before and planted doubt. Not enough to accuse him of anything outright, but enough to make Lena question her memory. She could almost hear his tone, light casual, the way he'd drop a line like, "Well, Ava mentioned she might be reevaluating those dates," as if he was simply relaying information. She didn't correct Lena by email. Instead, she walked down to her office, closed the door behind her, and laid the printed project plan on the desk. "These are the confirmed dates," Ava said. "There's no change request on file." Lena scanned the sheet, nodded once, and said, "All right, thanks." Her voice was neutral, but Ava caught the shift in her eyes. Not quite suspicion, but awareness. "Anything else?" Ava asked. "No. That's all." It wasn't much, but Ava filed it away. Riley was already probing for ways to reframe her as unreliable, which meant she needed to keep tightening her net. Over the next week, Riley switched tactics. Instead of contradicting her directly, he began offering helpful clarifications in team settings. When Ava gave a status update on the vendor integration, Riley would lean forward and add, "Right, and just to make sure we're all on the same page, that's assuming vendor B actually hits their testing deadline, which, they've missed before." It wasn't a lie. Vendor B had missed deadlines in the past. But Riley was using that history to inject uncertainty into Ava's current work, as if she hadn't accounted for it. Ava responded by keeping her tone flat and professional. "Yes, which is why we built a 3-day buffer into the schedule. That's in the plan everyone has." She didn't glance at him, didn't give him the satisfaction of turning it into a sparring match. But she noted every instance, date, meeting, exact words, in a private log. The second sign came on a Wednesday afternoon. Ava had left her desk for a coffee and returned to find Marcy hovering near her chair. "Hey," Marcy said, shifting her weight. Riley mentioned you might be feeling overloaded, and that maybe I could take the Dixon kickoff off your plate." Ava kept her expression even. "Did he?" "Yeah. Said you'd been stressed lately." Marcy's voice was cautious, like she wasn't sure she should be repeating this. "I appreciate the concern," Ava said. "But no, I'm managing my workload just fine. If I need help, I'll ask for it directly." Marcy nodded, almost relieved, and left. Ava typed a quick note in her verification folder. Attempt to reassign Dixon kickoff. Indirect approach via Marcy. By now, Ava could see the shape of his game. Riley was creating small, plausible-sounding doubts about her capacity, hoping someone else would act on them. That way, the change wouldn't come from him. It would look like the team was helping her. She decided it was time to test how far he'd go. That Friday, during a casual hallway conversation with David, she mentioned, deliberately, that she might need to push one minor vendor meeting by a day. Not a critical task, not even connected to Dixon, but enough for Riley to latch onto if he was listening. Sure enough, on Monday morning, Lena asked why she'd already pushed the meeting back 3 days. Ava kept her answer calm. "I haven't. It's still set for Wednesday." "Where did you hear that?" Lena frowned. "Riley said he thought you mentioned it in passing." "Bingo." Ava smiled politely. "Nope. Still on for Wednesday. I'll send you the invite again to confirm." As soon as she left Lena's office, Ava opened her verification folder and dropped in another entry. This one marked with a star. She'd baited the hook. Now all she had to do was wait for him to bite harder. By midweek, Riley overplayed. In the Thursday stand-up, he casually announced, "Oh, and Ava's rescheduled the Dixon vendor review to next week. Just so everyone's aware." Ava didn't even look up from her notes. "No, I haven't. It's tomorrow at 10 a.m., as on the shared calendar." There was a pause. 2 people checked their laptops. "Yep," one of the analysts said. "It's still tomorrow." Riley gave a tight smile. "Guess I misheard." But the damage to him was already done, and Ava saw it in the flicker of eyes between her colleagues. Doubt was shifting. Not toward her, but toward him. That afternoon, Ava quietly escalated. She compiled 6 of the most recent miscommunications, each one confirmed by a third party, into a single document. No commentary, no accusation. Just dates, quotes, and verification. She sent it to her personal email, then to a secure folder only she could access from home. She wasn't ready to use it yet, but she wanted it ready for the moment Riley pushed too far and gave her a clear opening. The third sign came late Friday. Riley stopped by her desk, leaning on the partition like he owned the space. "Hey, about the meeting the other day," he said lightly. "I hope I didn't make you feel attacked." Ava looked up at him. "I didn't feel attacked." "Good. Because, we're on the same team here. I just think sometimes you, get a little defensive when I'm trying to help clarify things." Ava closed her laptop slowly. "Riley, if you want to discuss work items, put them in writing. That way there's no confusion." He smirked. "Sure. If that makes you comfortable." She waited until he walked away before jotting the interaction in her log. That comfort line wasn't for her. It was for whoever he repeated it to later, framing her as fragile. Perfect. She could use that. When Ava left for the weekend, the air felt charged. Riley thought he was regaining ground, but every move he made was tightening the case she was building. If he kept going at this pace, she wouldn't have to wait 3 weeks for the overreach. It might come much sooner. Monday started quiet. Ava arrived at 8:40. She placed a thin stack of printouts in her drawer, then opened her laptop. At 8:55, she sent a short pre-read to the team for the 9:30 stand-up. Subject: stand-up pre-read. Body: Dixon onboarding dates. Vendor review Friday 10 o'clock, handover Monday 9:30. Johnson closeout. Sign-off items listed in the attached sheet. Ownership lines: Riley owns Dixon handover. Ava owns Johnson sign-off. Attachment: 1 page, times and owners in a table. She watched the delivery flags turn green. At 9:28, the team gathered in the open area near the whiteboard. Lena stood to the side with a tablet. Marcy, Jordan, and the analysts formed a half circle. Riley arrived last with a coffee. Ava spoke first. Quick sync. I sent a pre-read at 8:55. I will run through the 3 bullets. Then we confirm owners and times out loud. No one objected. She read item 1. Vendor review Friday 10. Handover Mon 9:30. Heads nodded. Riley said nothing. She read item 2. Johnson sign off items in the sheet. Lena tapped her tablet. I see it. She read item 3. Owners as listed. Riley raised a hand. One tweak. I spoke with the vendor last night. Ava moved the Dixon handover to Wednesday to match their availability. The group stilled. Jordan glanced at the calendar on his screen. Lena looked up from the tablet. Ava kept her face neutral. When was that call? Ava said. And who joined? Last night, Riley said. 7:30. Vendor pushed. You agreed by phone. Quick decision. Ava let the silence hold for 2 beats. Then she said, I did not join a 7:30 call. I was on the train at that time. I did not move handover. Riley smiled. You said you were fine with it. We spoke on your mobile. No, Ava said. We did not. Lena's tone stayed even. Do we have a note? Riley spread his hands. It was late. We wanted to move fast. I can send a recap. Ava opened her laptop. The vendor portal logs all calls. I will pull last night's record. She stepped to a nearby desk, clicked through the portal, and turned the screen so the group could see. Call history. No calls between 6 and 9. 1 inbound at 5:19. Marked missed. Lena leaned in. I see it. Ava scrolled. Text log. No outbound from my number after 6. No inbound from vendor after 6. Riley laughed once short. Then the vendor rescheduled and I misread the confirmation. Ava did not move. You said I agreed by phone. Riley took a breath. I thought you did. My mistake. Ava clicked a final tab. Calendar audit on the handover invite. No edits since my pre-read. Lena straightened. We keep the plan as sent this morning. If the vendor needs a move, we will do a formal change. Use email. No phone-only changes. Understood, Riley said. The stand-up ended at 9:40. People dispersed. Ava returned to her desk, opened a new document, and logged the exchange. Time, place, claim, evidence, witnesses. She saved it to third-party verifications and to her personal archive. At 10:15, Jordan walked by and stopped. Good catch, he said quietly. The portal screen helped. Thanks, Ava said. If timing shifts, I will send it myself. He nodded and moved on. At 11:10, Ava saw the next move arrive. Email from Riley, subject line stand-up recap. Team. To align. Dixon handover now Wednesday 9:30 per last night's vendor update. Ava confirmed in stand-up. Riley. Ava read it twice. The line sat in the middle of the thread like a bright flag. He knew the portal undercut him. He still tried to write the story into the record. She clicked reply all. Correction for the record. Dixon handover remains Monday 9:30. Vendor review Friday 10 o'clock. No change approved. Reference. Pre-read sent 8:55. Portal call log shown at stand-up 9:35. Ava. Lena replied 2 minutes later. Confirmed. Keep plan as written. Jordan added. Confirmed. Calendar unchanged. Riley did not reply. Ava printed the thread and placed it behind a divider labeled written overreach. At noon she sent one more note. Short, polite, directed to Riley alone. For clarity, please include me on any vendor scheduling emails. Phone summaries can cause drift. Written confirmation prevents errors. Ava. He replied at 12:02. Understood. No qualifier. No joke. One word. At 2:15 Ava received a calendar invite from Riley. Title, Vendor Quick Sync, Alignment. Time, 3:30 to 3:45. Required, Ava Riley. Location, Huddle Room C. No others. She accepted. Then she sent a separate message to Lena. Heads up. Riley booked a vendor alignment, huddle at 3:30 with only me and him. Given today's stand-up, I prefer a third person present or a note that this is an internal prep, not a vendor call. I will run a recap either way. Ava. Lena's reply was brief. I will join for 5 minutes at the top. 3:30. Huddle Room C. Riley sat at the end of the small table with a notebook. He looked up with a neutral expression. Thanks for making time. Lena stepped in behind Ava. I can give you 5, then I need to jump. Riley blinked. Great. This is simple. I want to confirm we keep handover on Monday unless the vendor asks in writing. Ava nodded once. Correct. Good, Lena said. Send the vendor a note that we hold Monday. Copy me. That is all. She left. Riley waited 2 beats after the door closed. I did not expect her to join. Ava kept her tone even. I invited her. His jaw moved once. Right. He stood. We are done. Not yet, Ava said. Please send the vendor note within the hour. I will reply to confirm dates. He looked at her. No smile now. Fine. At 4:05 he sent the vendor note. 2 sentences. We hold Monday at 9:30. Vendor review on Friday at 10. Ava replied with the same times, then sent a recap to the team. She linked the vendor email and the stand-up thread. She kept the language dry. By 5 o'clock the day looked settled. At 5:42 the overreach arrived. Email from Riley to Lena only. Subject, heads up on Ava. Body, Lena. Ava told the vendor we will move handover if needed, and then denied it in the stand-up. I am concerned about reliability. Happy to discuss. Riley. Lena forwarded the note to Ava at 5:46 with a single line. Please confirm your outreach today. No other comment. Ava opened her sent folder and pulled the 2 emails she had sent that afternoon. Both said the same thing, hold Monday. No offer to move. She attached them and replied. Confirming. I sent these 2 messages at 4:07 and 4:12. Both state we hold Monday. No language about moving. Riley's vendor note at 4:05 also holds Monday. Ava. 2 minutes later Lena replied to both of them. I see the messages. Dates stand. Please avoid side notes that imply changes without a formal request. Ava printed the chain. She slid it behind the written overreach tab. Then she opened her master pattern sheet and added a new row. Date Mon. Event. Stand-up claim of phone approval. Counter. Portal log shown, team witnessed. Follow-up. Recap email misstates outcome. Counter. Reply all correction, director confirmation. Escalation. Private note to director alleging my denial. Counter. Sent items attached, timestamps aligned. She looked at the grid. 6 rows filled the page. Today made 7. Her calendar pinged. 9 a.m. Tuesday, strategy meeting. Dixon at the top of the agenda. She sent a final email to Lena at 6:18. For tomorrow's strategy meeting, I will bring printed copies of the schedule, the vendor confirms, and the stand-up recap. I will present the dates and owners in the first 2 minutes. If any changes appear verbally, I will ask for immediate written confirmation in the room. Ava. Lena replied 1 line. Agreed. Ava powered down. She placed written overreach and third-party verifications in her bag. On the way out she passed huddle room C. The lights were off. The glass reflected her face and the folder under her arm. Outside the air felt cool. She did not feel relief. She felt alignment. Every piece now pointed in one direction. Riley had placed a false claim in writing to the director on the same day he sent a confirmed note to the vendor that matched her plan. He had created a contradiction that did not need interpretation. It needed a side-by-side. Tomorrow would supply that. She walked to the train and drafted the opening lines for the meeting, 10 clean sentences, no extras. Here are the dates. Here are the owners. Here are the vendor confirms. Here is the recap from this morning. No change request exists. We will use email for any move. We will confirm in the room before we leave. I will send the summary within 10 minutes. Please reply if anything differs. Silence will mean agreement. She saved the script. She closed her eyes for one stop. Then she opened them and watched the station lights slide by. In the morning, she would not argue. She would show the record, read the dates, and ask the room to agree in plain words that matched the pages in their hands. No more fog. No more memory games. One table. One plan. One log. The trap was not a scene. It was a process. He had walked into it on his own. The strategy room had a long table and no corners to hide in. A whiteboard took the wall to the left. The windows faced east and threw pale light across the screen at the far end. People filed in with paper cups and closed faces. Lena sat at the head with her tablet. 2 directors from finance took the seats near her. Riley chose a spot in the middle on the left. Ava set a neat stack of packets at the end of the table and waited. Let's start, Lena said. Dixon onboarding. Ava, you have the floor. Ava nodded once. She moved to the screen but did not connect her laptop. She opened her folder and held up the first page. This packet has 4 parts. Page 1 is the current timeline with dates. Page 2 is the vendor confirmations. Page 3 is the stand-up recap from yesterday. Page 4 is the email thread from this morning. I printed one for each of you. She walked the stack around the table and placed a packet in front of each person. No speeches. No build-up. Paper touched wood. Eyes dropped to read. Ava returned to her seat and set her copy in front of her. Page 1, she said. Vendor review on Friday at 10. Handover on Monday at 9:30. Owners are listed in the right column. I own Johnson Closeout. Riley owns Dixon Handover. There are no other changes. Heads lowered to check the columns. The finance director traced the dates with a finger. Matches my notes, he said. Page 2, Ava said. Vendor emails from yesterday. First from Riley at 4:05. Second from me at 4:12. Both confirm the same times. No offer to move dates. No conditional language. Lena looked up. I see both. Page 3, Ava said. Stand-up recap thread from yesterday morning. My correction is in the first reply. Lena confirmed in the second. Jordan confirmed the calendar in the third. Jordan raised a hand a little. That is correct. Page 4, Ava said. A private note sent yesterday evening that suggests I denied moving handover after telling the vendor we would move it. My reply shows the actual messages I sent to the vendor. Both hold Monday. Riley shifted in his chair. His cup clicked once against the table. Ava kept her voice even. Before we talk about next steps, I want to state the plan. We follow page 1. If the vendor requests a change, we create a formal change request in the ticketing system. We then confirm in writing to the full team. Until that happens, the plan stands. Silence held for a beat. Then Lena nodded. That is the process. We will follow it. She turned toward Riley. Any objection? Riley smiled a tired smile. No objection to process. My only concern is speed. Dixon likes early action. They expect us to move when they move. Ava answered before momentum could slip. We move fast. We do not move without a record. That protects us and it protects the client. We can still act within hours. We can still write it down. The finance director spoke again. Compliance will want that. Good to keep this clean. Riley looked down the table. I agree with the need to write things down. My worry is tone. We do not want to sound slow or rigid. Ava kept her eyes on Lena. Our tone will be clear and polite. Our actions will be fast and traced. Lena closed her tablet cover. Good. We will consider this settled. She paused. I also want to address the email last night. I do not want private notes that imply someone is unreliable. If there is a concern about a person or a process, bring it to me in a meeting with that person present. We will not build side channels. Riley nodded. Understood. Good, Lena said. Ava, send the minutes within 10 minutes of this meeting. Include the packet as a PDF. I will, Ava said. Lena turned to the rest of the room. Any other Dixon items? Marcy raised a hand. None from design. Jordan shook his head. Then we move on, Lena said. She clicked to the next agenda line. Ava listened to the rest of the meeting with half her mind. She noted action items and wrote initials beside them. She watched Riley from the edge of her vision. He did not speak much. When he did, he stayed close to his notes. He did not try to adjust any dates. He did not test the room with small claims. The show of paper had done its work. The meeting ended at the hour. Chairs scraped. People stood. Small talk rose and faded. Riley stood beside Ava as she packed her folder. Well done, he said. That was tidy. Thank you, Ava said. We could have handled it in a smaller room, he added. No need to pull a full packet for everyone. Ava closed the clasp. I like everyone to see the same page. Fewer mixed signals. Riley smiled without warmth. Right. He walked out. His shoulders were set tight. His cup sat empty on the table. Ava waited until the room emptied. She sat again, opened her laptop, and typed the minutes she had scripted last night. 10 lines. Clear and short. She attached the PDF of the packet. She hit send. Then she saved the draft to her archive with the timestamp. Her phone buzzed. A new message from Lena. Thanks. Exactly what I needed. Ava replied with a single received. She left the room and stepped into the bright hallway. The office sound flowed back in. She felt the instinct to relax and forced herself not to. The trap had worked because she made it boring. Dates. Owners. Emails. No heat. If she tried to savor the win, she might miss the next move. She walked to her desk. A message from Jordan sat open on the chat bar. Jordan. That packet was tight. He did not have room to wiggle. Ava, thanks. Keep using the calendar as the source. Jordan will do. She closed the chat and opened her log. She wrote 3 lines. Strategy meeting. Packet distributed. Dates confirmed out loud. Director affirmed process. Riley did not contest facts. Note from director on no side channels. She looked at the page of her log that listed the traps. The first trap had been public. The second was still in motion. It relied on time. It relied on a human habit. If you tell a clean story with paper, a person who needs control often tries to tell a stronger story the next day. They try to top it. They try to regain weight. She did not have to force it. She only had to be ready. Before lunch, she drafted 2 small emails to neutral parties. Both were simple checks. To Marcy, please confirm the handover date you have on your calendar. To the vendor contact, please confirm receipt of the handover time from yesterday. She got 2 fast replies. Both said Monday. She filed them under third-party verifications. At 3, Riley pinged her. Can we do a quick touch base on the training deck? She replied. Send me the deck. I will add comments in the file. He wrote back. Better to talk it through. She answered. Add your questions as comments. We will track them there. There was no reply. At 4:15, she saw him at the print station with a pile of color slides. He spoke to the analyst beside him in a low voice. The analyst smiled and nodded. Ava watched the printer count tick upward. Not every move happened in email. Some still lived inside rails. He would not stop trying to bend the rails. At 4:30, a new invite landed on her calendar. Title: Training Deck Dry Run. Time: 5:15 to 5:45. Required: Ava, Riley analyst. Location: Huddle Room B. She looked up. Almost the end of the day. He liked end of day. Fewer people. Fewer eyes. She accepted. Then she forwarded the invite to Lena with 1 line. Joining a dry run at 5:15. If you are free at 5:20, a 5-minute drop-in would help us lock messaging. Lena replied with a thumbs-up emoji. No words. That was enough. Huddle Room B had no windows. The lights hummed. Riley stood by the screen with the clicker in his hand. The analyst sat near the door. A deck opened on slide 1. Title in large letters. Brand colors clean and flat. Riley smiled. Thanks for joining. Ava Saturday, let's begin. He clicked through the first 5 slides. Process overview. Team roles. Delivery path. The talk track was smooth. He had done this before. On slide 6 he said, Training will start on Wednesday if the handover moves. We are flexible. Ava held up a hand. Stop on 6. We are not moving handover. Remove that line. He smiled. We might need it. It is not true today, Ava said. Keep the slide true. If we get a change request, we update the deck. He clicked to slide 7. Fine. Lena stepped in at slide 10. She took a chair by the door and listened without interrupting. At slide 12, Riley said, Our lead on this phase is Ava. She will host the training. Ava spoke at once. Owner for training is Riley. Per page 1 of the packet. Please update slide 12. Riley glanced at Lena. We can decide in the morning. Lena shook her head. Update now. Keep the deck aligned to the packet. Riley clicked. He said nothing for a moment. Then he changed the text on the slide. His jaw set again. They finished the run at 5:43. Lena stood to leave. Send the final by 9. Keep it as we saw it. We will, Riley said. After Lena left, Riley closed his laptop slowly. You do not need to copy Lena on every small thing, he said. I copy her on decisions, Ava said. It keeps us all in sync. It makes you look nervous, he said. It makes the work stable, Ava said. His eyes narrowed. He slipped the clicker into his bag. You got your clean stack in the room. Enjoy it. Ava stood. I do not enjoy this. Then why do it, he said. Because it is right, she said. Because the client pays for what is true. He watched her for a beat. You think this is about truth. I know it is, she said. See you tomorrow. She left the room. Her steps felt light and careful at the same time. She reached her desk and sent the brief note Lena had asked for. Then she sent the final deck to the team with a 2-line summary. Deck updated to reflect packet dates and owners. Please reply if you see any mismatch. No one replied. The silence was clean. On the train home, Ava opened her notebook. She wrote a single sentence at the top of a new page. When the room holds the paper, the story holds itself. She closed the book. Outside, lights slid along the dark glass. She thought of the first missing line in the old spreadsheet. She thought of the email she never wrote. Now she had a table full of people who had seen how a clear record works. It was not a victory speech. It was a practice. She would repeat it as long as she needed to. At home, she filed the day's packet in a drawer. She placed it behind the folders that told the path from day one to now. The stack leaned a little. It looked like what it was. Work that could stand on its own. In bed, with the light off, she let her mind rest for a minute. She did not replay every word. She did not track every glance. She let the quiet take the edges off. Tomorrow would bring the next move. Maybe small, maybe large. She had built a way to meet it without fear. Ava set her alarm and slid the notebook under the pillow. The story would not drift overnight. The record would be there in the morning, and the room would remember what the paper said. The days after the packet meeting felt steady on the surface. People nodded at Ava in the halls. The vendor replied on time. The calendar stayed clean. The quiet did not fool her. Quiet after a public reset often meant private work had begun somewhere else. She started every morning the same way. She opened her log. She checked the calendar. She sent a short note to the team that repeated the day's fixed dates. 10 lines at most. No adjectives. Then she put the note into her archive and moved on. By midweek, the ripple reached her in small ways. 2 newer hires stopped talking when she stepped into the kitchenette. A designer who had been easy with her last month now sounded guarded on a simple asset request. None of it was big. All of it felt aligned. Someone was working the edges. She did not chase each edge. She added a new row to her system instead. She called it Signal Watch. The row had 4 columns. Who? Where? Phrase used. Possible source. She promised herself a hard rule. Only write what she could quote. The first entry arrived that afternoon. Chris from operations asked if she was getting the rest she needed. He said it like a joke. He said it with a kind smile. He added that Riley had mentioned a heavy load for her this quarter. Ava wrote the exact words in Signal Watch. She thanked Chris and moved the work along. The second entry came from an analyst in finance. The analyst asked who would be her backup in case she needed a breather. The phrase matched the first pattern. She logged it and left it alone. Riley kept his distance in meetings. He answered when called on. He did not float dates. He did not test the room. He worked the spaces in between instead. Short chats. Doorway comments. Quiet checks that felt like care until she wrote them down. Ava answered each in the same way. Plain. Final. I am fine. If I need help, I will ask in writing. That line became a lid she could place on any pot he tried to heat. She also began to seed her next move. The plan for Chapter 12 would need structure before it could land. She opened a clean document and typed a header. Change control kit. Under it she listed 5 parts. A 1-page form for any date or owner change. A shared inbox that auto-archived every request. A vendor call bridge that recorded and saved to the project folder. A calendar policy that banned verbal moves. A version report that exported edit history weekly. She wrote each in simple steps. She did not add pitch language. She kept it as a tool, not a speech. Before she showed anyone the kit, she tested each part on a side project. She set up the shared inbox. It captured the subject line and a PDF copy of the body. She ran a practice bridge call with Marcy and Jordan. The file landed in the right folder in under a minute. She asked IT for the weekly version export. They turned it on with 1 checkbox. She watched the first report arrive on schedule at 7 p.m. with 2 files attached. She saved it and noted the time in her log. She asked herself a final question. Could any part of this be spun as control for its own sake? She adjusted the language in the header to block that angle. She removed her name from the kit. The first line now read, Team tool to reduce rework and keep clients safe. The tool would sell itself if she stayed out of the way. Riley did not know the kit existed yet. He still had moves of his own. On Thursday, he tried a soft rally at the end of the day. The company cafe had a small patio with metal chairs that rocked on the stone floor. He sat with David and 2 new hires. His voice carried just enough for Ava to hear while she filled a water bottle inside. I worry about Ava, he said. She is brilliant. She cannot let go. That is hard on a team. One new hire nodded. The other said nothing. David's face did not change. Riley moved on to a new topic. He laughed at his own line. The group laughed with him. Ava watched the scene through the glass. She did nothing. She wrote the quote in Signal Watch. Phrase. Cannot let go. Audience. Mixed. Maya pinged her 3 minutes later. Small heads up. Patio talk. I can send names if useful. Ava replied. Thanks. Logged. No names needed yet. Ava sent herself back to the work. The best answer for a soft rally was visible steadiness. She checked the open tickets. She returned 2 drafts with clear comments. She sent a vendor thank you for hitting the test window. She CC'd the team. She filed each message in her archive. At 5:30 an invite popped up on her screen. Title: Dixon Training Final. Time: Friday 8:30 to 9. Required: Ava and Riley. Optional: none. Location: Huddle Room A. The time bothered her. Early start. End of week. No third person. She accepted it and opened a new email to Lena. Note on 8:30 Huddle. I would like a second person present for the first 5 minutes. If you are not free, I can bring Jordan for the setup and then he can leave. Lena answered in 4 words. I will pop in. Ava closed the window and set a paper clip on top of her folder. She used small markers like that to keep her mind clear. Clip meant director on first 5. No clip meant at a second on her own. She walked past the print station on the way out. Riley was there again with slides. He spoke to the analyst about the order of the deck. He pointed at the notes area and traced a finger along the lines. People liked a neat show. He knew it. He was building one. Ava went home and cooked a simple dinner. She did not replay the patio talk. She did not rehearse responses. She printed the change control kit and read it once out loud. The words sounded clean. She placed the printout in the back of her bag under 2 other files. She set her alarm and slept. Friday began with gray light and a steady sky. Ava reached her desk at 8. She reopened the training deck in the shared folder and checked slide 12. Owner listed for training. Riley. The change held. She closed the file and opened a blank note. Title: Friday Huddle. At 8:27 she walked into Huddle Room A. Riley stood at the screen with the clicker. The analyst sat on the side. Lena stepped in at 8:30 and took a chair near the door. Riley started with his talk track. He kept it tight for 3 minutes. Then he pushed. Small thought, he said. If the vendor asks on the call, we can shift handover by a day to give them room. We should show that we are flexible. Ava spoke without raising her voice. We can respond same day if we get a written request. We will not pre-offer a move. The deck should not suggest it. Lena nodded. Keep the deck clean. No if language. Riley pressed once more. We do not want to sound stiff. Lena shook her head. We want to sound exact. Clients buy exact. He adjusted slide 6. He removed the conditional line. He closed the deck. Lena left the room. The analyst followed with a quick wave. Riley stayed by the screen, hands on the table. He looked calm. His eyes said the opposite. You made this heavy, he said. I made it simple, Ava said. You pulled paper into every room. Paper is neutral. You think paper protects you. It protects the work, she said. He held her look for a long second. We will see. She did not answer. She left the room and walked straight to her desk. She sent a quick note to the team. Deck updated. No conditional language. Times hold. She filed the sent copy and stood up. She could feel the next move coming before it showed. It arrived at 9:10. A direct message from a sales lead she barely knew. Hey, Riley says you told the vendor we can slip if they push. Is that true? Need to prep the renewal talk. Ava answered in 10 words. No. Times hold. See deck and packet from this week. The lead replied with a thumbs up. Nothing else. Ava logged the phrase. Slip if they push. She wrote the time. She returned to her task list. At noon she sent the change control kit to herself with a bland subject line. Toolkit draft V1. Then she opened a new message to Lena and attached the file. I built a small kit to reduce last-minute churn and protect the client. It runs on our current tools. No new spend. If you think this is useful, I can pilot it next week on 2 live accounts and report back. If not, I can park it. Lena answered after lunch. Pilot on Dixon and Johnson. Keep it light. Show impact. Bring a 1-page readout next Friday. Ava replied with a single line. Will do. She did not announce the pilot to the floor. She made 3 small moves instead. She created the shared inbox. She set the bridge to record the Dixon call. She turned on the weekly version export for the Dixon folder. None of it changed a person's day. All of it changed the record. Mid-afternoon brought the mini conflict she had expected. Riley tried to pull a one-to-one with the vendor contact by phone before the recorded bridge. The vendor messaged Ava. Quick chat with Riley now. Do we still meet at 3 on the bridge? Ava answered. Please keep all date talk on the bridge so the team can hear. See you at 3. At 3 the bridge opened. The tone was friendly. The file shared cleanly. When the vendor asked if a move was possible, Ava answered first. We can process any change today. Send the request by email, and we will confirm within the hour. The vendor said that worked. The call ended at 3:26. The file saved to the folder at 3:27. The auto link posted to the team channel at 3:28. No one had to ask where to find it. Riley stayed quiet after the call. He did not speak to her as he passed her desk. He did not try a doorway comment. He closed his laptop at 5. He left with his bag over his shoulder and a set jaw. Ava packed up slow. She checked Signal Watch and the kit tasks. She wrote one new line to herself. Next week. Show the readout. Ask for rule adoption. Keep it simple. She reached the lobby when her phone buzzed again. A new calendar invite had landed. Sender. Compliance. Title. Process review check-in. Time. Tuesday 10 a.m. required. Ava and Riley. Optional. Lena. Location. Conference 2. She stood still near the glass doors and read the details twice. The body of the invite had one sentence. Please bring your documentation for Dixon onboarding changes and related communications for the last 30 days. She walked outside and let the cool air hit her face. This was not her invite. She would treat it as neutral. She would bring the packet. She would bring the version report. She would bring the vendor call links. She would bring the stand-up recap thread and the recap from the strategy room. She would bring the change control kit as a pilot, not a weapon. She sent a short note to Lena. Received a process review invite from compliance for Tuesday at 10. I will bring full records. Let me know if you want any other items added. Lena replied with 2 words. I will attend. Ava slipped the phone back into her bag. The next chapter had said itself. No speeches. No drama. A room. A table. A record. She walked toward the train with a steady pace and a list in her head that matched the stack in her drawer at home. Tuesday would not be about opinion. Tuesday would be about what the pages said. Chapter 12. The Compliance Crossroads. Monday night was quiet in Ava's apartment. The city noise felt far away. She cleared the kitchen table and set down 3 stacks. Timeline. Correspondence. Evidence. She started with the timeline. Dates down the left. Owners in the next column. Short notes on the right. No adjectives. No opinions. She read each line aloud. Vendor review Friday at 10. Handover Monday at 9:30. Johnson closeout items listed. She pressed each sheet flat with her palm and moved on. Next came the correspondence. Pre-reads. Recaps. Vendor emails. Calendar screenshots. She checked subject lines and times. She checked names. She clipped each thread to its matching date on the timeline. She wrote a small number in pencil on every clip. 1 through 14. Last stack. Evidence. Version reports. Call links. 2 audio files from the hallway. She opened each report and checked the footer. Export time at 7 in the evening. No gaps. She clicked the call links to confirm the files still played. She listened to the first 30 seconds only. Voices clear. Dates read at the start. She stopped both files and noted the folder paths on a yellow card. She built a cover page for the packet. Title at the top. Dixon onboarding. Period covered. 30 days. Sections listed. Timeline. Emails. Vendor confirms. Logs. Call records. She left a blank line at the end for add-ons. She printed 2 copies of the cover. One for the front. One for the back pocket. She took a break and poured water. No music. No TV. She stood at the window for a minute and let her eyes rest. Back at the table, she opened a new document. Meeting script. 10 lines, all action. Show dates. Handout packet. State process. Confirm next steps. Offer pilot of change control kit. Ask for written adoption. She kept the lines short. She printed the page and slid it into a plastic sleeve. She checked the change control kit again. Form. Shared inbox. Bridge with record. Calendar rule. Weekly export. She wrote a one-line benefit for each item. Fewer errors. Faster handoff. Clear trail. Safer client calls. Cleaner audits. She taped those lines to the back of the kit in case she needed to pitch fast. She packed the packet into a slim folder. She packed the kit into a second folder. She placed both into her bag and zipped it shut. It was 11 when she set her alarm. Sleep came in tight bands. She did not dream. Morning light hit the blinds in thin stripes. She woke before the alarm and sat up slow. Shower. Coffee. Shoes. The bag felt heavier than normal, which helped. She reached the office at 8:20. The floor still held that early hush. She placed her bag under the desk and opened her laptop. One scan of the inbox. Nothing odd. One scan of the calendar. Compliance meeting set at 10 in conference 2. Lena listed as optional, which meant she planned to attend. A message from Jordan arrived at 8:26. Short line. Let me know if you need a witness on any point. Ava wrote back. Thank you. Bring your laptop to the hall at 10 and wait. I will ping if needed. Jordan sent a thumbs up. No extra words. Ava walked to the printer and ran one more packet set. This copy had colored tabs. Blue for timeline. Green for emails. Red for vendor items. Yellow for logs. She liked the way color lowered stress in rooms like this. She wrote a sticky note for herself. Slow voice. Show first. Speak second. At 9 she took a lap of the floor. Not to walk off nerves. To see tells. People give off tells when a room like compliance is on the calendar. Marcy nodded and gave a soft smile. Jordan kept his head down and typed fast, which for him meant calm. 2 new hires watched her pass, and then looked at each other. A designer whispered to a sales rep, and both went quiet when she neared. Small tells. Nothing fatal. She logged none of it. She passed the glass wall near huddle room B and stopped. Riley stood inside with the analyst. He had a legal pad and a stack of printed emails. He spoke in a low tone. The analyst nodded on rhythm, not in agreement, more in habit. Riley tapped one sheet and drew a small square with his pen. He liked props. He liked a clear box around his point. Ava watched for 10 seconds and moved on. She did not want to turn a stray scene into meaning. She opened the kitchenette door and filled a water bottle. The drip of the dispenser felt loud in the empty room. Back at her desk, she opened her log and added one line for the morning. Packets printed. Script ready. Links tested. She turned off notifications for an hour and placed her phone face down. She closed her eyes for 3 breaths. In through the nose. Out through the mouth. She counted 1 to 4 in both. At 9:30 Lena stopped by. No noise. No smile. She set a hand on the desk and spoke low. I will attend for the first 20. If they need more, I will stay. If not, I will exit and let you finish. Works for me, Ava said. Bring the kit, Lena said. If the room is open to it, we use this time. Understood, Ava said. Lena left as fast as she arrived. No small talk. No extra. It steadied Ava more than any kind word. 9:35. Ava checked the vendor folder one more time. The bridge had saved yesterday's file in the right spot. The weekly export sat next to the timeline file. She clicked Properties and read the created times. All aligned. 9:40. A Slack message from Riley popped into view and faded. Are you bringing audio recordings? She did not respond. She would state her list in the room, not in a side chat. 9:42. A short email landed from compliance. Please arrive 5 minutes early. Bring digital and printed records. The note had no signature, which felt right. Ava stood at 9:45. She placed the 2 folders in her bag and slung the strap over her shoulder. She slid the attendant's log into the side pocket. She added a small pen case. No loose items. No fumble when she opened the bag in front of a table. She walked past Huddle Room B again. Riley stood alone now. He faced the glass and fixed his tie. He looked at his reflection and raised his chin a little. He adjusted the angle of the pad on the table. He tapped the top sheet twice with his index finger. He had a script. He would press it hard and fast. He always did that when he felt pressure. Ava kept moving. She did not lock eyes. She took the long way to conference 2 to give herself 1 more minute to breathe. The hall smelled like toner and carpet cleaner. A cart sat at the end of the corridor with a stack of binders on the top shelf. Someone had left a pen across the top binder like a bridge. At 9:52, she saw Jordan by the water cooler. He held his phone and pretended to scroll. She nodded as she passed. He lifted his chin in a small hello. He understood the role. Witness on standby. No entry unless pinged. Conference 2 had a wide door and a blank wall opposite the entry. The table was oval and pale. 2 monitors hung above a credenza with a speaker puck. A small sign on the wall read room recording off by default, which meant she would need to ask. A woman from compliance sat at the far end with a laptop. Gray blazer. No jewelry. A clean notebook to her right with a single pen. She stood when Ava entered. "Morning," the woman said. "I am Vera. Thanks for being on time." "Morning," Ava said. "Thanks for scheduling this." Riley arrived at 9:54. He held a single folder and a coffee he did not drink. He took a seat on the left side and placed his folder square in front of him. He smiled at Vera like they had met before. He kept the smile fixed for one beat too long. Lena walked in at 9:56. She nodded to Vera and sat on the right. No folder. She held only her tablet. She placed it face down. Vera glanced at the wall clock. 9:58. She folded her hands and spoke in a level tone. "Format is simple. We review the Dixon onboarding record for the last 30 days. The goal is to check process fit and reduce rework risk. I will ask direct questions. Please answer with dates and sources. If we need to listen to a call or open a log, we will do it in this room. If anything looks unclear, we set a follow-up. Understood." "Understood," Ava said. "Understood," Riley said. Vera looked at the credenza. "I will record this session for internal notes. Any objection?" "No," Ava said. "No," Riley said. Vera pressed a button on the puck. A small red light glowed. She opened her laptop. First topic. Handover dates and owners. Baseline plan. Any change requests. Any verbal shifts. "Ava, start with your baseline." Ava placed her folder on the table and slid out the color tab packet. She kept her voice calm. Timeline is on page 1. Vendor review Friday at 10. Handover Monday at 9:30. Owner for handover listed as Riley. Owner for Johnson closeout listed as Ava. Packet includes vendor confirms and meeting recaps. Vera reached for the packet and set it before her. She checked the top page. She turned to the next one. She did not nod. She did not comment. Riley cleared his throat. "Before we dive in," he said, "I want to note the speed of this account. Dixon expects fast pivots. We do our best to keep up. I know there were points where we acted quickly. Any small gaps in notes came from that pace, not intent." Ava waited for Vera to respond. Vera did not. She kept reading. Ava did not look at Riley. She watched Vera's eyes track the lines. She knew this pace. She knew this tone. Precision would beat charm in this room if she kept the ground solid. Vera stopped on page 2. She traced a line with her finger. This email from 4:05. Sender is Riley. This reply from 4:12. Sender is Ava. Both confirm the same times. "Correct." "Correct," Ava said. "Correct," Riley said. Vera turned to page 3. She read the stand-up recap. Then she looked up and spoke with the same even tone. "I will next ask about a private email that was sent to a director last week. The email raised concerns about reliability. We will view the chain in full." She looked at both of them. "Please pull that thread on your screens. Do not speak yet. We will read it together." Ava opened her laptop. She found the chain and set her hands on either side of the trackpad. Her pulse did not climb. The chain spoke for itself. Riley lifted his folder and pulled out a printout of the same email. He set it square before him. Vera tapped the puck once to confirm the red light still shone. She closed her notebook without writing a word. "All right," she said. "Let us begin." Vera scrolled to the top of the chain. The subject line read, "Heads up on Ava." The date stamp showed 5:42 in the evening. The first line said that Ava told the vendor a move was fine, and then denied it. Vera read each message in order. She reached the reply that held Ava's 2-cent emails from 4:07 and 4:12. She checked the headers. She checked the times. She looked at Lena. "Do these match what you saw at the time?" Vera asked. "Yes," Lena said. "I saw both that night." Vera turned to Riley. "What did you rely on when you sent your note at 5:42? Riley set his palms flat on the folder. "A quick hallway summary from earlier. I believed a move had been floated. My note was cautionary. I wanted to keep leadership aware of possible churn." Vera kept her tone even. Did you check the vendor thread before you sent that? No, Riley said. I plan to confirm after. Vera looked at Ava. Did you at any point offer a move to the vendor? No, Ava said. I wrote that we would act on a written request. I did not offer a move. Vera nodded once. Open the vendor email from 4:05. They opened it. The line read, we hold Monday at 9:30. Vendor review on Friday at 10. Open the reply at 4:12, Vera said. They opened it. The line matched the first. Vera looked at Riley again. What do you think this thread indicates? Riley took a breath. That the schedule held at that time. At that time, Vera said. What changed by 5:42? Riley shifted in his chair. A comment in the hall suggested Ava might be seeking flexibility. I wanted to make sure we did not drift. Who made that comment? Vera asked. Riley paused. I do not recall exactly. It was a quick pass. Vera wrote nothing. Do you have any written source that mentions a move between 4:12 and 5:42? No, Riley said. Vera returned to the chain. She scrolled to the top again and closed it. She opened her notebook for the first time and wrote a short line. Let us confirm the baseline one more time, she said. Vendor review on Friday at 10. Handover on Monday at 9:30. Owners as listed in the packet. No change requests filed in the ticketing system. True. True, Ava said. True, Lena said. Riley gave a small nod. True. Vera did not move on. Now the stand-up. Riley, you stated that Ava agreed by phone to move the handover. The portal log shown in the room did not reflect a call. What did you rely on for that statement? Riley cleared his throat. The vendor had flagged a possible shift in an earlier thread. I connected that to a conversation I believed I had with Ava. Vera looked at him. Believed? Yes, he said. Vera turned to Ava. Did you have any call with Riley after 6 that day? No, Ava said. I was on the train. The portal log confirms no calls in that window. Do you have the portal export? Vera asked. Yes, Ava said. She slid a thin printout across. Call history for the date. Vera checked the grid. She read the legend at the bottom. She drew a small circle around the 6 to 9 window. She slid the page back. Understood, she said. Riley leaned forward. I want to note the pace again. We move fast on Dixon. Missed notes happen. I am not trying to mislead anyone. Vera did not acknowledge the claim. We will return to pace later. For now we will isolate facts. She opened a new window on her laptop. Next topic. Meeting recaps. I have 5 threads in the packet that show Ava sending corrections in the first reply. Is that pattern accurate? Yes, Ava said. I send corrections within minutes when dates are misstated. Riley spoke in a low tone. I have also sent recaps where I corrected myself. Vera looked at him. List 3 examples with dates. Riley hesitated. I will need to pull them. Do so, Vera said. We will keep moving. She turned to Lena. From a leadership view, what is your expectation for date changes? Documented before action, Lena said. We can move fast with notes. We do not act on talk. Has that been stated to the team? Vera asked. Yes, Lena said. In several meetings. Vera wrote a short line. She closed the notebook again. Next topic, she said. Verbal claims made in public settings that did not match written plans. I have 3 incidents in this packet. 1 in a weekly status. 1 in a cross-team call. 1 at a stand-up. She looked at Ava. Were these isolated? No, Ava said. They occurred across the month. Frequency increased when I began sending pre-reads. Vera looked at Riley. Response. Riley's jaw flexed. We had genuine confusion about vendor timing. I wanted to keep people unblocked. When I spoke up, I believed I was helping. Vera kept her face neutral. Did you believe you were helping when you emailed the director to call a person unreliable on a day with aligned written confirms? Riley looked at the folder. I should have copied both parties. That would have avoided this. That is not my question, Vera said. Riley's voice thinned. I was wrong to send it without more checks. Vera nodded once. She did not press further. She switched to the packet again and turned a page. Next, she said. Attempts to create early meeting starts without calendar updates. Ava passed 2 screenshots. The first showed the invite at 10 with no change. The second showed the email sent at 9:33 with a 5-minute call to start. Ava spoke in the same steady tone. These are examples only. I have more. I began to track them. I arrived early after the second time. Vera read the timestamps. Did these early starts alter decisions? They excluded me from pre-talk, Ava said. I cannot speak to the tone in the room before I arrived. I can only speak to what happened once I sat down. Riley spoke again. We try to use time well. Starting early does not exclude anyone on purpose. Vera closed the screenshots. Process covers this. If a start time changes, an update goes to the invite. We will standardize this. She set both screenshots beside her laptop and lined their edges. Now, she said. One more cluster. Claims about a person's capacity or memory. I see 2 items in this packet listed as Signal Watch. Where did these come from? Ava kept her answer short. From direct quotes I received secondhand. I did not write names in the packet. Vera turned to Lena. Have you heard statements of this type? I saw hints, Lena said. Not direct claims. Enough to pull me to today. Vera looked at Riley. Have you made any statements about Ava's capacity or memory to others? Riley spread his hands. I have expressed concern about workload. That is normal leadership talk. Are you in a leadership role over Ava? Vera asked. No, Riley said. Then consider your scope, Vera said. We are not here to rate a person. We are here to trace a process. Riley sat back. He pressed his lips closed. Vera turned the packet to the call record section. We will listen to one vendor call in this room. I want to hear the exact language used when dates were raised. Ava slid the yellow card with the folder paths across the table. Vera typed the path and pulled the file onto the screen. She raised the volume. The room filled with the sound of a bridge tone and a greeting. The vendor's voice read the date and time for the record. The first 10 seconds played. Ava's voice followed. She stated the handover date and the rule for changes. Riley did not speak in the first minute. Vera paused the file and looked up. Clear, she said. She marked the time code. She let the recording play again for another minute. The vendor asked if a move would be possible. Ava answered with the written request rule. Riley asked about training slides. No offer to move. Vera stopped the file. Now I will ask about one more item, she said. There is a note that hallway comments were used as sources for several claims. Do you have any recordings of those moments? Ava met Vera's eyes. Yes. 2 brief clips. Both under a minute. Both recorded on separate days. They include statements that imply I had agreed to a change that I had not agreed to. Riley shifted hard in his seat. Were people told they were recorded? Ava kept her tone even. The hallway is a common space. The policy allows recording of work conversations for notes. I used the clips only to create written corrections. Vera held up a hand. We will not litigate policy here. We will listen to the content. If the clips confirm the written claims, they are relevant. If they do not, they are not. She looked at Ava. Please cue the first clip. We will hear it from the start. The room was too still. Even the hum of the ceiling vents seemed quieter than usual, as if the building itself wanted to hear what came next. Ava sat with her hands folded, keeping her eyes on the conference table instead of Riley. The screen at the end of the room was blank for now, but Vera's laptop was connected, the cursor hovering over an audio file. Let's start with the first recording, Vera said evenly. She glanced around the table once, meeting no one's gaze for too long. This clip was provided by Ms. Thomas. A click, then the faint static of a hallway microphone. The sound was raw, every shuffle of shoes against the floor magnified. A door closed somewhere in the background, followed by the low murmur of 2 voices. Ava recognized her own, calm, measured. She remembered that day. She'd been heading back from the break room when Riley cornered her. In the recording, Riley's voice was smooth, the tone friendly on the surface. You don't have to keep sending those updates to compliance, the Riley in the audio said. It makes it look like we're not aligned. A pause, then her own voice. The updates are required. Another pause in the recording. His voice dropped, harder now. Required by who? If I say they're unnecessary, then they're unnecessary. You don't want people thinking you can't follow direction. The clip ended. No one moved. Ava kept her breathing steady. She could feel Riley looking at her, but she didn't return the glance. Vera leaned back in her chair. Mr. Colton, do you dispute that's your voice? It's me, Riley said, almost lightly. But that's not the full conversation. You know how audio can sound when it's cut. Things can be taken out of context. Vera didn't nod. She didn't challenge him yet. She simply waited. Riley continued, shifting in his seat. That day, we were discussing duplicate reporting. I was clarifying that we didn't need multiple submissions on the same issue. That's all. It didn't sound like a clarification, Ava said, her tone even. That's your interpretation, Riley replied. His voice still had that measured patience, but his shoulders were too square, too stiff. One of the managers on the far side of the table scribbled something in a notebook. Ava noticed, but didn't try to read it. Vera leaned forward slightly. Mr. Colton, do you recall if there were any policies in place at the time that allowed you to override compliance reporting requirements? Riley hesitated. It's not about overriding. It's a yes or no, Vera said, her voice still calm. A longer pause this time. No. That no seemed to hang in the air longer than anything else. Vera tapped her pen once against her notepad, then looked to Ava. Were there any previous instances where you were advised not to send required updates? Yes, Ava said, keeping her eyes forward. This wasn't the first time. Were any of those requests documented? Yes. In email. Another ripple of silence passed through the room. Ava could feel the shift, subtle but real. The kind that happens when the air pressure changes before a storm. Riley broke it, leaning forward, palms on the table. Look, I think we all know how this sounds, but I'm telling you there's more to it. That clip doesn't capture my intent. It was about streamlining, not silencing. Intent is noted, Vera said, still without raising her voice. But company policy is clear. Required updates cannot be blocked, delayed, or discouraged. Whether your intent was to streamline or not, your words in that clip contradict that policy. A faint cough came from the far end of the table. Vera closed the folder in front of her, her expression unreadable. We'll move on to the second clip now. This one was recorded 2 weeks later. She glanced toward the laptop again, then looked back up. Before we play it, does anyone have anything they'd like to clarify about the first? No one spoke. Riley leaned back, crossing his arms, his eyes fixed on the wall. Vera's fingers hovered over the trackpad. She clicked once, and the cursor shifted to the next file. The small speaker icon pulsed, waiting for the command. All right, she said. Let's hear the second hallway recording. The moment Vera tapped the trackpad, the room filled with a sharper, closer recording. This hallway microphone had picked up every small sound. Footsteps, the hum of a vending machine, the faint click of someone's pen. Then Riley's voice. Lower this time, but with an edge that was hard to mistake. Do you understand what happens if you keep sending things up without running them by me? The clip carried the quick, light sound of Ava's own steps slowing to a stop. She could picture it clearly, her back to the wall, Riley standing close enough that his voice didn't carry far. I'm following the reporting schedule, her recorded voice said, calm but firm. You think that protects you? Riley replied on the clip. His tone wasn't raised, but it was tight, each word clipped. There's a difference between protecting the company and making yourself a problem. The audio cut off. For a beat, no one moved. Then someone shifted in their chair, the scrape of the leg against the floor sounding louder than it should. Vera looked at Riley. Is that your voice again? It's me, Riley said, leaning back in his chair, crossing his arms. But again, context. That was part of a conversation about handling sensitive information. We didn't want to cause panic internally before we had the facts straight. Ava kept her gaze forward. It wasn't about facts. It was about control. Riley's jaw shifted slightly. That's your perspective. It's what you said, she replied evenly. The manager with the notebook was still writing, the faint scratch of the pen carrying through the quiet. Vera's tone didn't change. Mr. Colton, you referred to Ms. Thomas making herself a problem. Can you explain what you meant by that? He shrugged slow. It means causing unnecessary issues in workflows. If things are sent without review, it complicates the chain. And do you believe that's a justification for discouraging required compliance updates? I wasn't discouraging them, Riley said, a little quicker this time. I was asking for coordination. Coordination doesn't require intimidation, Vera said, still steady. A faint crease formed between Riley's brows. That's not what this was. Vera let the silence stretch for a moment before she continued. Were there any written guidelines you provided to Ms. Thomas explaining this coordination process? No, Riley admitted. Did you document any concerns about her reporting process to HR or compliance prior to these conversations? Again, no. The manager in the corner stopped writing for a moment. Vera sat back, closing the folder. We're going to need to verify the full timeline of these interactions. Both clips will be reviewed alongside Ms. Thomas's email documentation. Riley's mouth pressed into a thin line, but he didn't respond. The shift in the air was subtle, but Ava could feel it. The room wasn't leaning toward Riley anymore. They weren't leaning toward her either. Not yet, but the even balance was gone. He had been pulled off center. Vera's gaze moved to Ava. "Ms. Thomas, please provide the emails you referenced earlier, with timestamps and recipients. We'll request them formally as well." "They're already in a folder," Ava said. "I can send them right after this meeting." "Good," Vera replied, her voice neutral but final. The meeting notes were being typed quietly by the HR assistant in the back, the faint clack of the keyboard steady and unbroken. Vera turned her attention back to Riley. "You will receive a follow-up meeting request once we've reviewed all materials. For now, you are to refrain from contacting Ms. Thomas directly regarding this matter. All communication should go through HR or compliance." Riley's jaw tightened again, but he gave a small nod. "Understood." The formalities wrapped quickly after that. People gathered their papers, laptops clicked shut, and chairs scraped softly against the floor. Riley didn't look at Ava as he left, but she felt the weight of something in the way his footsteps quickened down the hall. Ava stayed seated until the room emptied. Vera was the last to leave, pausing at the doorway. "Stay available this afternoon. We may need clarifications once the email review starts." "I'll be here," Ava said. When the door closed, the silence of the empty room felt heavier than when it had been full. She exhaled slowly, letting her hands rest on the table. The recordings were out in the open now. That part was done. But she also knew Riley. This wouldn't be the end of it. He wouldn't let it be.